Hello and welcome to the Swallows Charity Head and Neck Cancer Podcast. Join us on a head and neck cancer journey, presented by Derek Luthwaite.
Hello everybody.
And Chris Curtis.
Hello everyone.
We'll be discussing everything that patients and caregivers need to know about diagnosis, treatment, and so much more.
I'm CEO of the Swallows Head and Neck Cancer Charity, and I'm also a cancer survivor for nearly 10 years now.
And I became a caregiver when my wife was diagnosed with mouth cancer, and it certainly put me on a journey that I never expected to experience during my lifetime.
The Swallows Charity Head and Neck Cancer Podcast is designed to help and support both patients and caregivers.
Hello everybody, it's Derek again, and I'm here with Chris. So, Chris, we're going to be looking at our experiences. We're going to be looking and talking to expertise with regards to head and neck cancer.
I think we need to get some special guests in from the health professional area. I think we need to get people in that have lived through this.
I just want to cover one thing. It's very important that you and I are talking about our personal experiences. We are not talking or offering medical advice, are we?
Definitely not. No, it's just about our personal experiences, and anybody that we fetch on will be talking about their personal experiences, unless we make it very, very clear it's a health professional. But otherwise, everybody on these podcasts will be talking from the heart. I think the main thing is laughter is the best medicine, and I think we've got to have a laugh as we go along. You know, this is a serious subject, but at the end of the day, if you have a laugh, you can get through a lot of things. Okay, guys, anyone out there listening, if you want to give us any feedback or you want any questions answering, please just get in touch. You can either go on the website, www.theswallows.org.uk, or you can email us at info@theswallows.org.uk.
Chris, I believe there's a direct link to the podcast on the website as well, so it's an easy way of getting straight into these discussions. Yeah,
if you go on the homepage, look for the banner. You can either scroll the banner across or wait for it to come. It says podcast, click on that, and away you go.
And please drop us likes in social media if you hear it and you like what we're doing, and also please send us any questions or comments. We will look at all of those before we do each of the podcasts and see if there's anything relevant that we can bring in and help people out with, or if necessary, you know, if you want some personal contact, then I believe, Chris, there's a 24/7 telephone line that people can contact.
Yeah, there's a 24/7 line. That line is always answered by a patient or a carer. It's not a call center. So if you're ringing on the 24/7 and you're a patient, you'll get through to me personally, no matter what time of the day or night. And if you're a caregiver, you get through to Sharon, my wife, and you can talk. And that number is 07504 725 059. I'll say that again, 07504 725 059. And also you can follow us on Twitter if you're on Twitter at Swallows Group. So just go on Twitter at Swallows Group and follow us on there as well.
People, we're going to cover the generic headings. So the first area we're going to look at is life before cancer.
So life before cancer. I thought we would talk about the awareness or the lack of awareness. Thought we would talk in deep about what the public should be looking for and what people should be looking for, the signs of head and neck cancer particularly. I then thought we would talk a little bit about the HPV injection of boys and where that's going to take us in future years and how that could possibly help bring cancer for head and neck patients down in future years. Boys now get injected at school every September, and I think it would be nice to have a program around that, a session around that.
We'll look at that, and then I guess from that, bad news, we find something. So sort of the generic heading, discovery. What are we going to cover under those sort of subjects?
I mean, discovery is an endless subject. We could do podcast after podcast after podcast about this. And I think it's important that we get some health professionals on from the world of the GP land and the dentist land. My big thing is dentists have our mouths open more than anybody else does. So surely they'll have a big part to play. And also, if you're with an NHS dentist, you should get an oral screening free of charge every time you're in there. So I think we need to sort of talk about that, so the awareness is there. So I think, discovery is a lot of areas. The discovery could just be at home. Is it when you have a lump like I did and you say to the wife, this lump's not going away? Or is it when you have a cough and that doesn't go away? Where is the discovery? So I think we need to identify discovery as well.
Okay, and we need obviously during that to make sure people understand that it's better to ask too many questions than no questions at all. It's better to be told there's nothing wrong with you 50 times than not bother and only find out, too late that there was something there. Okay, great stuff. So sadly, we found something. So we're now about to sort of embark on the early stages of the initial meetings with hospital and hospital people. So what are we going to try and cover in this sort of generic heading, Chris?
I think we're going to sort of break that down into a journey as well. I think I've been thinking about this an awful lot, and I think at this stage is when everything happens, and it happens very quickly. To do it justice, I think we need to break it down a little bit. So some of the headings I've put is the hospital appointment, the first one, what to expect. And maybe we can get one of the consultants in to talk about that, or one of the nurses. But the big one is the biopsy. And I think we need to bring the pathologist in so people understand that it's a human being behind this diagnosis of whether you've got cancer or not, and what a role they play, and such an important part, because whatever they say is where your journey goes. And that's what the consultants work on.
It's right to say, isn't it, Chris, that the pathologist actually stays as part of the team throughout the whole course of treatment, because he has many, or he or she have many opportunities to guide and steer the team into which direction they should be going. So very, very important part of the whole process.
Yes, definitely. And I think we need to bring that out. The other thing I think we need to talk a lot about is the MDT. Once you're in the journey, you'll hear people talking about the MDT. But initially you think, what the heck's the MDT? And that's a multidisciplinary team. And I've sat in a couple of those meetings to understand what they actually do. And it's an incredible meeting. And I think it's important that we let people know what an MDT is. So when you're sat in that waiting room and you think, why are they running late? Are they having another cup of coffee, or are they having their lunch and keeping us down there? Actually, if you're the first one being reviewed in an MDT and they've got 30 people to review and you're number 30, surely you'd want the same time as number one has. And, they don't have a time limit on each person. That person's discussed until they agree. So I think it's important that we bring that out so people realize that when they're in a waiting room, there might be a really, really good reason why they're running late. And if you're that 30th one there, Derek, and I've seen it, you don't want that shortchanged. You want them to discuss it, and you don't mind being like, we talk about what happens next, waiting times, pathology. We talk about, the outcome, the waiting of 3 days because of going away and thinking about it. Well, they do. They just say to you, you've got cancer, now go away and think about it for 3 days. You'll come back and you'll be told you. And that's because they're doing their planning for that 3 days, not just because they've sent you away. So I think we need to really break that down and drop that into it.
That sounds like a lot of potential episodes to cover on that subject alone, Chris.
You're listening to the Swallows Charity Head and Neck Cancer Podcast.
Now, we've obviously had the discovery. It's been identified. we have a cancer, and it could be one of hundreds and hundreds of different types of cancers in the head and neck, in hundreds of different locations, with hundreds of different problems and issues.
Actually, Jarek, I believe there's 220 different cancers for the head and neck area, including mouth, nose, ears, around it, and that's not including brain.
That's unbelievable, Chris. Unbelievable, because you say you've got cancer and you just think, well, it's cancer, but it isn't that simple. So now we're on the treatment pathway. So they've identified what we've got, and they've identified the type of treatment that they're going to offer us. And I guess, again, Chris, we could cover 100 episodes here on this topic alone. So what are we going to be looking at during the treatment pathway?
I think majority of head and neck patients, no matter what cancer you get, there's three pathways you get, which is normally radiotherapy, chemo, surgery, or you'll get surgery, radiotherapy, chemo, or you'll just get radiotherapy and chemo. So it seems to be they're the three main headers of our treatment pathway. Depending on your cancer, depending where it is, depending on the stage of the cancer, depending on a lot of factors, will depend on which way you go around that. But also, I found out that Hospital A might always do radio, chemo, and then an operation. But Hospital B will do an operation, radiotherapy, and chemo. There's no right or wrong way. But also, I think there's doing things about the feeding peg. What is a feeding peg? And why should I have a feeding peg? Does it hurt? What happens when they take this thing out? And how do you cope with the feeding peg? And then obviously we've got our laryngectomy patients and friends, and where they have their voice box removed.
Yeah,
and I think that's
a tough one for.
And I think we need to bring their voice into these podcasts. And by having one of our friends from the laryngectomy world come in, then I think that's going to give people hope and an explanation. So I've really kept it down to the very basics in there. But like Derek, once we start this thing, there'll be someone that will come on and say, well, I had this, I had that. But then we can investigate it.
Indeed. Okay, so we've set off down the treatment pathway, and whatever was proposed has been concluded. And we're into sort of post-treatment era now. What happens in the post-treatment? That's another massive generic heading that I'm sure we're going to end up talking a lot about.
Yeah, post-treatment. I've also included some as you go through the treatment as well, because side effects happen very quickly in head and neck cancer. So it's important that we talk about side effects during treatment, but also post-treatment. And some of those do cross over and some continue into post. So dry mouth, for instance, will happen very quickly when you're having radiotherapy. What's out there for side effects to help patients? So we can bring some of the companies out there that are really doing some great work into solving problems with obviously dry mouth and side effects.
And I think it's fair to say, Chris, also that this is not just a patient journey. This is a patient and caregiver journey, because
don't start. They have an easy ride, that the patient is always forefront in my mind, and patients at the end of the day, it's their treatment. You wouldn't be on that journey without us, so you should accept everything that comes your way.
We're only on that journey because of you, and as a result of that, we need special treatment. But seriously, folks, I think it's really important that we will be covering some of the caregiver issues that happen along the way, some of the stresses and strains that the caregiver faces, and we'll hopefully be bringing in special topics and aspects with regards to that side as well. So we've gone through the post-treatment. We get two messages now. We're all clear, or you get the dreaded, it represents itself. So what are we going to look at with regards to representing?
What do you do if it represents? What happens if you suddenly find another lump? What to expect? What should I be doing? And, I was lucky so far, 10 years almost to the day, and it hasn't represented with me. So, and hopefully it never does. But I know your wonderful wife, it did represent. So realistically, you're in a better position to talk about this than whatever I am. I only talk to patients that have represented, and it's a scary moment because they've been going along that road thinking everything's fine, everything's good, and then all of a sudden the bullet hits them again.
Yeah.
And sometimes that bullet hits them a little bit harder this time because it's represented. I think we could talk to some of our friends that have represented and are still with us, that are now living with that representing.
Of course, representing does not necessarily mean the end of the road, but hopefully for most people, even a represent gives them an opportunity to readdress some of the treatment pathways that they've been on before, and fingers crossed, and God willing, and all that sort of stuff. They get a cure from the disease. However, as you've alluded to, Chris, there is one final stage for those who don't have the cure, and that's being diagnosed as terminal, and that's a really sensitive subject, which I think it's important that we cover and have a discussion about, because for some people, and hopefully a very small percentage of people, that will become the reality. So that's another area at the end of our journey we will actually cover. And
the thing is, though, the Swallows has always been and will always be a charity that supports people that are going through the journey, and with every hope that they will survive. We will never turn anyone away if they go palliative. Everyone is welcome to us, but we don't specialize in palliative care. There are expert groups out there that will do it. So maybe we can start bringing some of the groups that do that at that time. And I'm not just talking about the Macmillans of this world, but there are a lot of other groups like the Swallows that specialize in palliative care. And maybe we can talk about collaborating with one of those groups to bring what they do. But I think palliative has got to be there. We can't ignore it.
We need to signpost it, don't we, so people know, where to look and where to hopefully try and get some help and assistance and some guidance in what is one of the most difficult and traumatic times that they'll ever experience. Okay, well, we won't dwell on that one at this moment in time. And finally, Chris, on this whole journey, which is going to take us about, well, from what you've just read through, I would suggest about 25 years to cover everything. We have some sneaky little plans to bring in the odd guest now and again that isn't actually a head and neck cancer survivor, patient, or caregiver, to get some sort of overview on what our system offers and what we can take advantage of.
We can't change your journey, Derek. I can't change mine. It's done, it's finished, it's gone, it's in the water. But we can certainly help to change tomorrow's patient. And I think if we can do these podcasts and at the end we have changed one person's journey, then it's been worth us spending this time doing it.
Absolutely agree with you 100%, Chris, and more. It is a traumatic time of a person's experience of life. Not only finding out that cancer is in the family, whether it be you personally or a member of your family, the fear that goes through you, the worry, the concerns, and we are not going to be able to give any magic answers. We're not going to be able to wave any magic wands and make things different to what they are. But what we can do, hopefully, people, is explain and tell you about our experiences. You're not alone. Okay, somebody somewhere has gone through this before and is happy and willing to share that information with you in an effort to give you a steer, a pathway, a direction, comfort. That's what we offer. We're not here to do medical diagnosis. We leave that to the professionals. Well, that, I think, wraps up our first episode. We've given you an outline of the journey we hope to take on you. I want to thank Chris for the work that he's put in putting this little pathway, this very large pathway together, and the work that's going on behind the scenes to get these guests and speakers involved. We will start our next episode at the very beginning of this pathway, as we've explained it to you. We'll be looking at life before cancer. We'll talk a little bit about that particular subject. If you've liked this podcast, please drop us a like on the website. You can find our website address,
www.posttreatment, theswallows.org.uk. Or you can email us at info@theswallows.org.uk.
And we would welcome your comments and or questions. We'll check and see if there's any relevant questions that people have asked us. Everybody, we look forward to talking to you again in the very near future.
You've been listening to the Swallows Charity Head and Neck Cancer Podcast. For more information, please visit www.theswallows.org.uk. We hope you'll join us again next time.